This podcast is produced by the Harwood Productions Podcast Network. To learn more about the network and to find more of our shows, visit us online at www.harwoodpodcast.com.
Hi, I'm Cindy Harris, and this is the second in a two-part episode on making this beautiful fresh apricot tart. Now, in our first episode, we made the crust, and in the second episode, we made this beautiful apricot filling. Now we're going to start on our filling. We need about 2 pounds of fresh apricots, and that's about 16 of this size fruit. Now whenever you're making any kind of fruit tart, it's really important that your fruit taste really good. So sometimes you need to buy the fruit or get a hold of it a couple of days ahead of time and let those juices kind of continue to develop. But do taste the apricots and make sure that they taste like an apricot now. It's not going to develop in flavor a whole lot more once we bake it. So I'm going to take my fruit and with my knife I'm going to cut these in half. And one of the nice things about apricots is the pits come away really easily. Once I've cut them in half, I'm going to cut them in half again. So I want each apricot to be cut into quarters, and then I'm going to place that in my bowl. Now to my quartered apricots, I'm going to add a half a cup of sugar, 3 tablespoons of cornstarch, and that's going to help thicken any of those juices that get released. And then I want to add a little bit of lemon juice. So I'm using the lemon that I zested from my pastry, and I'm running it through a strainer because it has so many seeds. And then I'm going to measure out 1 teaspoon, and I'm going to put that in as well. Now I'm going to use a spatula to stir this up, and the reason is I don't want to break up those apricot quarters. I want them to stay as whole as possible. So I'm going to toss the apricots with that sugar and the cornstarch. Now at first it's going to look like it's not going to absorb it all, but don't worry, it will. So once you get it pretty well tossed together, we're going to let this just sit off to the side for about 10 to 15 minutes, and it's going to continue to coat those apricots. Now while my apricots are sitting off to the side, I've gotten a tube of almond paste, and I'm going to cut it in half. This is about a 7-ounce tube, so I'm going to use about 3.5 ounces of it, and I'm going to slice the casing of it off, and we're actually going to put this in the bottom of our pastry. There's something about almond and apricots that are just fantastic. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take little pinches of my almond paste, and I'm going to flatten them out with my hand. And I'm going to take those little discs and I'm going to place them just in the bottom of my pastry. Now you're going to notice that this looks just like the pastry, but it won't taste like the pastry. I'm just going to press it right in the bottom. All I'm doing is adding some flavor to the bottom of this crust, almost like it's a little surprise. So I'm just going to go through and put little pinches of that almond paste all over the bottom of my tart. Now we want this to be a fairly thin layer. That's why I'm pressing this out with my hands first. And it doesn't matter if it looks kind of patchworky like this, because of course all that great apricot's going to be on top. Now with my 3.5 ounces, with what I've done today, I got all but just this little area done. So I just sliced off another piece of that almond paste, and I'll just use it to fill in that one little area. Now you'll notice I'm not pressing this hard into the tart shell because I don't want the pastry to come up those sides again. But when I'm done, I just want a nice coating of that almond paste all along the bottom. Now once your sugar and cornstarch has totally liquefied and is coating all of your apricots, it's time to put them into our tart shell. Now of course you can just take them and put them in a random way, which is great. But one of the beauties that I find with tarts is how you can artistically place the fruit and really make it a work of art. So let me show you how I'm going to do this one. I'm going to start by taking one of the quarters of the apricots, and I'm going to place it just like this on the tart shell. And then I'm going to take another quarter and I'm going to kind of nestle it together just like this. So as you can see, I'm just placing a slice of the fruit along the tip of the other slice, and I'm just keep turning the pan like this. Now I've come along and I've completed this first circle, and for my next pass I'm just going to tuck that in to an open space right here. Just continue that pattern all the way around. And the real deal here is you want to just kind of tuck that fruit in as best you can, because of course you want to use as much fruit as possible, because that's what's going to give this tart this incredible flavor. And then I'm just going to take this last slice and put it right in the center. So I'm going to tilt this so you can see, isn't that a beautiful pattern? Now you can see I've used practically all of my fruit, and I still have a little bit of this great sugar and cornstarch mixture. I'm just going to take some of it and drizzle it on. Now the reason I'm not putting all of it on is because I think it would be a little bit much. So just kind of drizzle some on the top, just like that. Now this tart is ready to go in the oven, so I've preheated it to 400 degrees, and I'm going to put the timer on first for about 30 minutes. I'm going to want to watch. I want to see that the crust along the outside gets nice and brown, and that those juices are starting to bubble. Now this has been about 35 minutes. At 30 minutes I noticed that the crust wasn't quite as brown as I'd like, and the juices were not bubbling yet. At 35 they were, and you're starting to see a little bit of caramelization on the apricots, which is great. Now I'm just going to let this sit here on the tray for about 15 minutes. Now once the tart has cooled for a little bit, I'm going to take my giant spatula and I'm going to slide it up under that and place it on a cooling rack. Now with these fruit tarts, you do want to make sure that they are completely at room temperature before we remove the outer ring. So this is going to need to set and cool for at least an hour or two. Now my tart has cooled really nicely. It's time to release it from the sleeve and get it onto my little tart dish. Now I have just a little glass dish. I'm going to put a little beverage napkin right in the center, and the reason I do that is that helps the tart from slipping around off of it. So now I'm going to take just a can of something. It doesn't really matter. I'm going to set the can right in the middle of my board. I'm going to bring my tart over and I'm going to set it right on top of the can, and what's going to happen is the weight of that is going to help release that little sleeve. So I'm just going to take my hands, kind of give it a little nudge, and there it comes. And then I can just pick it up and put it right on top of that beverage napkin. So here is our beautiful apricot tart. The pattern looks great. Look at how beautifully brown the crust is. This is ready to serve. Now if you'd like to try this fresh apricot tart at home, just go to our website and go to the Sweet World show notes, and I'll have the recipe for both the crust and the filling there for you. And as always, if you have any questions, please send me an email. I'll see you next time.